Hi, everyone. Welcome back to latest episode of the Precursive podcast, Precursive Perspective. It's been a little while. I've been very busy, so hopefully you've all you listeners out there have been missing me a little bit. I am delighted today to be joined by Onnela Pukk, who is the head of professional services for Gorgias. Onnela, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
We just spent about 10 minutes, guys, working out how for the camera not to follow Onnela around
Oh,
the room,
yes.
which seems to be like a new Zoom feature that's that nobody told anybody about, which is
Such a
really
relief to have it off.
awesome. Well, listen, give folks a little bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do at the moment, a bit about your background. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in tech, B2B software companies for over 10 years now, based in Toronto. And about 4 months ago, I joined Gorgias, and I am the head of professional services. Prior to that, I was the VP of professional services and support at Lupio. And earlier in my career, I started off as a implementation manager, did a lot of customer on-sites in person, a lot of consultative work and really delivering services, and saw how you build a professional service organization and function.
Awesome, very good. Of course,
Yeah.
our paths crossed at Lupio, which is fantastic, and I think you did a fabulous job in that organization, shaping that team and the culture there. So I think I'll be really interested in your views on how services is evolving and some of the different motions that you're seeing in the marketplace. Because I think even if you cast your mind back to sort of when you started in services, you mentioned being on site with folks, the
Yeah.
a lot has changed. So just to begin with, I guess I'd love to get your take on how you've seen services evolve over the last years.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number of ways that they've evolved. One was the travel. So that was pretty common in the services packages that I was delivering. I'd fly on site for 1 or 2 days and gather a lot of information, help us implement. But the other two kind of themes that I'd say have really changed are being a lot more focused and careful about the margins overall. It's not really the heyday of inflated investments, let's say, of years past. And so every organization within the company is now more aware of the P&L. And so that applies to professional services too. And I think the biggest shift is that back in the day, it was like always don't worry about the services revenue. And that still may not be the primary focus. That's usually not the main goal. It shouldn't be. But don't worry if your team is making back its revenue. Just focus on adoption and training, making our customers happy. Where there might be product gaps, just ensure that we are filling in that void. And now that's still how professional services can largely function, but there's a lot tighter scrutiny over making sure we have good capacity, headcount planning. It makes sense, the ratios that we have and the services that we're delivering. And I think another major trend that I've seen, in addition to the focus on the margins and the revenue, would be this movement towards not just professional services charging for fees, but also some entire CX orgs turning subscription model. So what type of CSM you get, if you get additional time with the customer education team, that is something that I have rolled out in the past, and that gets to be very exciting because then you have a subscription model, which is adding to the ARR, it's increasing the deal sizes, and it really gets you a seat at the table because you're no longer just cash on hand, one time kind of predictable services, but also delivering that subscription service as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, there's lots in there to unpack as we get through. I think the mark my words, the being on site piece,
Yeah.
that's going to be back in vogue, is already back in vogue in a big way. I think this whole I'm not sure if you've seen, there's a lot of stuff doing the rounds around forward deployed engineers and what the companies like Palantir are doing. And there's a lot of debate about, the ability of vendors to now kind of mobilize expertise, whether that's services or whether that's R&D, into
Mhm.
their customers and be in there working very closely with them, often on site.
Mhm.
So that's definitely coming back. And to your point as well, I just think there's no better time to be in services or in the growth sale organization. Don't call it the post sale organization, call it the growth sale organization, because like you said, the opportunity to structure different types of services to create this kind of more holistic wrapper around the value that you drive from products is it's just
Mhm.
really interesting. It's creative combined
Yeah.
with sort of that sort of general management, fiscal literacy piece as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
it's really interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've always said that that's why it's one of my favorite areas of customer experience because you do get to be creative, you get to listen to voice of the customer, share that with product in a data-informed way. You get to be interfacing with customers, working with all teams, and you're also revenue adjacent. So you get to have a seat at the table when it comes to those conversations around predictability and forecasting and have that financial literacy.
Yes.
So I do love the role that it plays, and I agree it's not going anywhere, especially as every company is moving quickly towards AI. And what can you do with or without AI?
Yeah.
What your professional services team is doing is still often highlighting what cannot be yet automated or still needs individuals to handhold.
Yep. Yeah. And so when you think about like the different um competencies, right, within services that you really focus on, and those can be, organizational capabilities, they can be sort of the key tenets that have served you well in the past. What are some of those things that kind of form the foundations for you as you look at scaling services?
Yeah, I always look for a few things in interviewing candidates, and it's pretty consistent. I look for people that are builders, really, so very resourceful and generous with what they have done. I noticed that this helped me a lot as I was growing in my career, and those customer onsites that I was delivering, I would come back and say, "Here's what really worked on the agenda. Here, it was a bit awkward. We could do this asynchronously." But I would advise, like, when we come on site, we do things like this, and I'd share with the entire CX team. And I look for individuals that similarly think, how do I further us as a team? So if I've uncovered some templates or macros or scripts that really help me out, am I being generous and sharing that because we have the same greater goal, we have the same targets? And with that comes a certain kind of empathy and desire to be building a team that is evolving and is progressing. So those would be the main things. And I find that that's also important if you come back to what we just said about working with all teams, being generous with product, not keeping the insights that we have within our team, but really thinking, how do we turn this into voice of the customer feedback that has both the quotes and then it also has the data to back it up.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that spirit of generosity piece is
Hmm.
speaks to me. That used to be in the company that I worked in prior that shaped a lot of my sort of professional history, which is a company called CEB. One of the core values was the spirit of generosity,
Oh,
um,
cool. I
which I
like
didn't
that.
really get at the time because I was in my
Yeah.
20s and I was a bit of an idiot. But I do now. I think that's very, very true in services. And a lot is it's actually I think one of the arts of leadership is being able to give people that space or those cadences where you can tease those things out because everyone's so under the pump, aren't they, all the time, that sometimes there's all of this really cool stuff being done, either in
Yeah.
how you're collaborating with clients, what you're building for them, as you touched upon. Um, just even like, in my world, 80% of what we do every time in a delivery is the same. But the
Yeah.
20% of stuff that's really cool that's on the edge, whether we're building custom applications for them or integrations or workflows or these types of things, and you don't like you've got to kind of go and looking for those things and dig them out,
Mhm.
so no, those things definitely relevant. And then I think you've looked in the past, right, at kind of how what the shape of that overall kind of services catalog should look like. And where you're working right now, my
Mhm.
understanding is you've got sort of a reasonable level of diversity in the services that you're offering. You've
Mhm.
also got this partner ecosystem where you're delivering kind of with or through partners, I believe, right? So it's not uncomplex, right?
No.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So like how do you articulate some of the key elements of your strategy in that type of go to market where you've got that diversity of offerings and the partner piece? Talk us through
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is important at every type of company because there are areas where your professional services team should not be the experts and should not be really going beyond their subject matter expertise. But to step back and speak about Gorgias for a minute, we are a help desk and sales platform built for e-commerce. And so when you think about our partner ecosystem, there is so much that happens between, you were talking about Zara earlier,
Yep.
between getting you clothing and then if you want to return it, there's just so many hands within that whole system. And so if you think about returns, you think about subscription services, we touch on so many different types of partnerships. There's agencies, there's technical partners, and similar to the philosophy I've had at other companies, your team of professional services should really be the experts in your product. They are the most up to speed in what the latest feature releases are, how to best optimize the platform, how to get the most value out of it. That should be the moat that you're really secure in saying, hey, if you want to optimize best practices, you want us to do things for you, that is really our strength. And then you want to work with partners where that goes beyond. And there's always a beyond, and there might be a Venn diagram, but you should get pretty clear with your partnerships on where that ends and where you might be referring merchants or customers to them. So, a good example in my case would be I manage the implementation team and the custom solutions team. We can help with all kinds of customizations for the AI part of our platform to execute actions for you. We can customize your help desk, the way your pages look, the widgets look, but we're not going to build a website for you. And for that, we might send you over to a laser or somebody that is able to build an entire website for you. So that would be where I see the delineation. And then there's also the element of you have an ICP at your company and you should be trying to really focus on how do we create services that center on what is best for our ICP. So not work really beyond because within services you can get really, really custom and go in really a number of directions.
Mm. Okay. No, I like that. I think having that maturity about like what are we for, but also what are we not doing, and
Mhm.
being very clear about as much about what you're not going to do is
Mhm.
as instructive to the team and management community as it is to what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to like draw a line in the sand and say, look, we don't do that, and for these reasons. So I think that's a useful perspective. And to your point, I think this, you know, customers now are interested, I think, in working with vendors who have an appreciation for the ecosystem around the technology that you're selling.
Mhm.
Um, I know that that manifests in our world because our products are built on the Salesforce platform, and so
Yeah.
our customers will be using things either side of us, right? Usually
Yep.
CRM at the front end, oftentimes support or into a finance system at the back end.
Mhm.
And over the years, our ability to speak to how we integrate and how we play with others is as an important a factor as it is. And again, as you say, that's where partners comes in. I mean, we were getting asked, we were getting dragged into a lot of NetSuite integrations, right, between our product and NetSuite, and
Mhm.
um, getting asked questions around best practices, and we're like, we can advise, but the best people for you to talk to are going to be NetSuite services partners, to be blunt,
Yeah.
right? They're the ones that are doing this all the time. So again, understanding what's adjacent to you and how you help in that space, really important. When you think
Mhm.
about, like, you mentioned earlier that you're adjacent to revenue, you've got a seat at the table. Let's talk a little bit about that, because services increasingly now, I think, is recognized as being a key part of company go to market, at least in
Mhm.
the companies that have figured it out, in my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
And so, how would you describe how you guys are impacting growth at your business?
Yeah, well, I think that it's really a unique organization here in that we do have commitments in terms of product adoption. So that is new for myself. I know it's an area that we want to speak about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's also commonalities with other organizations that I've been in where There's a large motion of SMB, mid-market, and then where it comes to enterprise, there's a lot of room for creating services specific more to not only being experts in the product, but also delivering, helping with change management. So it can be really a change management focus. If you're dealing with an organization that has multiple brands, multiple stakeholders, they are switching solutions, that needs a lot more handholding and people supporting than a simple switch over.
Okay. The commitment piece we're going to talk a little bit more about as we go through. Um, when you when you think about the just on a couple of things that you said there. So this piece around adoption, right? About services role in adoption. Um,
Mhm.
is that somewhere where for just this is an aside, I'm curious, do you see that as being an area where AI is going to play a role in how you can kind of accelerate customer learning with your solutions, either within delivery or, in that adoption phase? I was just curious if you looked at much in terms of the use of AI there.
Do you mean in our teams
Yeah,
or
either in
with?
your teams or in how your teams would work
Mhm.
with customers around that product adoption piece. The reason I ask is like a lot of our enablement materials now
Mhm.
that would have been sort of static documents or
Mhm.
documentation in the past, where it's like,
Right.
here's how you get ready for the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is we folded them into some GPTs to make
Mhm.
that learning experience a lot more dynamic. And I was just curious if in the product adoption space, you see in the future that AI will have a role in helping accelerate your customers' learning in terms of product adoption at all.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. I'd like to get there as well. I mean, a great
Mm.
source of all of that information is already existing on call recordings and Gong. Like, what are the
Right.
things we are saying routinely all the time?
Yep.
That's already been highlighted as perfect for things like our LMS and learning and helped us. But
Yep.
if you think about putting that in the hands of customers, I mean, that is just so convenient to be able to ask, what's first, what's next, what do I do? Because it is really repetitive. We've also looked at applying it in a bit more of an advanced level where it's looking at multiple different pages
Mm.
and doing a lot of our advice when it comes to, hey, how do you optimize your instance? How do you really turn on all the best features that'll help you get a higher automation rate? How can we evolve it to be sort of running through the same things that we would be looking for? So there's many layers, which is why I asked the clarifying question. There's the internal use of it, there's the
Yep.
customer use of it.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
helping us deliver things more efficiently that we're already doing. And I feel like we are at an unprecedented time of having it within all of our softwares. It's in Zoom right now, it's within Gong, and so you have all these inputs. And we do use an internal AI as well, which is phenomenal to have that link to our internal wikis, know about our so many documents within our drive. Like it can really tell you an informed opinion and you can share openly, what we're planning to do on the team. So that is also really helpful to unlock not having to make everything, covered up and ask kind of generically. But yeah, really excited to see how we can further use AI because I think we still have a long ways to go to really make that customer facing and that's totally possible. I would love to mimic what you're all doing.
Yeah. 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 We were just, yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about it as we go through. The thing that kind of got me to reach out to you was I love seeing it when kind of services involved in marketing. I loved and I just loved some of the examples of your implementation managers kind of shouting
Yeah.
out what they'd done. And that's what caught my eye and sort of got me to reach out to you again. Um, can you share some examples of, or just tell us a little bit more about like, how do you like surface these stories and then socialize them either with clients or internally to
Mm.
like just again help to lift up company performance? Was that a very organic thing, that sort of like campaign that I saw, or is it just naturally part of the motion that you've got, or is this a new thing? What? I'm just
Yeah, no, that
interested.
that luckily is very organic. Just the
Yeah, that's
connection
cool.
between our sales and our marketing. I did our leader of implementation. She launched a launch channel that highlights even more of the story. So every single launch can be highlighted, like, hey, how long did it take to launch them? What's the automation rate that they're at, and the brand name? Because I think in addition to marketing and implementation talking to each other and sharing these on LinkedIn, that's great. That really builds credibility, it builds trust. Seeing that internally just really validates this team's driving value every day. Seeing the launches, I love celebrating them just like sales get celebrated, or a previous wins channel I saw was demos booked, sales, launches. I think all of these things should really be celebrated. And we have a lot to share when it comes to, hey, what did we learn? So, which teams did we work with to launch this customer? What systems were they coming from? What challenges did we overcome? And I find that it's really encouraging for sales to see, hey, I just sold, they followed through, they launch successfully, I could send them a congrats, and then just sell more confidently and knowing like what we're sharing is true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that that's really important to kind of shout from the rooftops and keep priming, really educates passively.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, I think like something that I've been saying for a while now is like having, when you have a go live, like that you just get that notification going in, wherever your tool is, or push it over into Slack or wherever it might be. Um, we're we're awful at that. We're just not. We don't. I'm like these guys are live, and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it all went really well. I'm like, okay, can we tell everybody? Just
Yeah,
let's, like you say, we
I love
announced the
it.
wins.
Yeah.
Um, like we just did a massively complex program,
Oh
and
my gosh.
like we sort of announced it. But what I also had was I had the solution consultant just do a demo of like what we
Great.
built for them.
Oh, I love that.
And just like this step through demo, which was 15,
Great.
20 minutes. Like it was amazing. And like everyone's like, okay, cool, like amazing. That's like our stuff in the wild.
Instead of
Um,
slides, just taking them through a demo. That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it just like no recording out of the sandbox. So actually a recording in the sandbox, like of the step through of like their portal, how they do their planning, all of this type of stuff. It was awesome. And everyone's like, ah, okay, like this abstract stuff that we do really, really, really makes sense.
Yeah.
So no, I saw yours and they just look so cool. So we're not as cool as you yet, but I'm going to use it as inspiration.
Way
And
to
then
celebrate the team as well. Like it's so
yeah,
nice to use the name and celebrate implementation managers or professional services. It can be a really behind the scenes kind of thankless role, but even without our own marketing posts, we have merchants that are shouting out these individuals too, which really shows how influenced they were or how above and beyond they felt that they were supported, which is also phenomenal.
yeah, yeah. We got asked, like, could someone send us some swag? We're like, yeah. Like, of course you can. Is that okay? Like, yeah, 100%. Can we like send them this? Can we take a picture of this message and send it to them? They're like, yeah,
Absolutely.
it's cool. No, I agree. And on so on this the alignment with other functions. So you've talked about revenue and talked about product. So let's talk a little bit about that for a moment, because I'd be curious to know, like, what are some of kind of the foundational tactics or things that you do to
Mhm.
improve that alignment with either sales or with products? Just go where you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if talking about product, it's really helpful to have data from solutions like yourselves to say, hey, here's where our team is spending this amount of hours, this amount of people. That's really where you can get aboard so many different functions and leaders that really quickly understand, hey, that's a lot of time doing this kind of repetitive work, running something that could be potentially a script or built in, and vying for those places because we're not often demanding huge features. Sometimes they can highlight areas that can be released in a much shorter sprint. And so being really clear on what we are sharing with product and our order of priority, what we are doing, what we would love to see within the product, and being a really good partner to them too, being really aware of what they're releasing, the value it brings. I think that's very critical and important, but it also is so important to have data, not a gut feeling, not stories like, hey, we're hearing this more and more, just putting those numbers down.
Mm,
And then with sales, I find that they're almost like an internal customer where you have your voice of the customer externally, and then you have sales as well. And they'll often come to you, especially as a leader of services, saying, hey, do we have this? can we put something together for? And those types of repeated requests really highlight opportunities for, hey, this should be a service package we put together or look at if we don't already have it. They also are a good beacon of highlighting when you're not sharing stories enough. So, like, what are their slides actually saying about your team? Are they as strong as what we put on LinkedIn and just talked about? Or do they actually need some more collateral to just keep hitting home those proof points that we do deliver a really strong value prop within the org? Um, but yeah, I think there's kind of endless partnering and work that you can do with both, but those are fast friends at any organization in terms of overlap and needing to be on the same page.
Mm. Yeah. I've heard a few interesting things recently about kind of services and product. One organization, someone from the services team moved over into product, and they were like, it's sad to see them leave, but they said we kind of needed it because now
Yeah,
we've got someone in there who's speaking to the power, if you will. Because remember, product's a powerful engine in the in product organizations, obviously. Um,
yeah.
we moved one of our product managers into our services weekly. We
Oh,
just had them
cool.
in that session every week where they
Nice.
talk about implementations and they're hearing these things. Then
Mm,
if there's, for example, patches that are needed or there's a bug or something like this, that needs to be dealt with and they understand the context. So I think that's been a significant game changer for us. Like as we get bigger, like you would
mm,
have more services people, potentially more product people, but yeah, I think that's really important. The point that you raise about the services stories is an interesting one because I think um I think the world is inherently sort of skeptical about the amazing data points that
mhm,
software companies talk about in terms of their products. I read this funny, like it was Dave Kellogg, I think, who was like, if you added up all of the total ROI of what all of us as software vendors are supposedly delivering, like
mhm.
our clients should be getting gazillion percent, ROI and growth rather than the reality. And I think um the services stories sometimes now I think are more about like, here is what we did with this
Yeah,
particular customer. Like, this is who they are, this was their challenge, here's what we did,
mhm,
this is the type of thing that they implemented. And
yeah,
just that in this type of company with this type of problem, and this is what we did, what the
yeah,
solution looked like, is almost more compelling, I think, necessarily than they got X, Y, or Z now off the back of it. Do you know what I mean? It's more pragmatic, factual, just
yeah.
like that's what we implemented. Does that
I
sound
think
like that's relevant to you? Yes, it is. Okay, tell me more.
yes, I totally agree with that. I think it really stands out, just like on LinkedIn. If you see something really authentic and just something specific and honest, it really stands out. And I find that with a lot of professional services stories, it's really important to remind every team that is talking about them to put it in the perspective of the merchant or the customer. So, like, talk their language. Like, this is what the store was going through. This is specifically what we helped them with. So, they were switching vendors, and we made sure that that was really seamless by supporting XYZ. They were going through a branding change or they had, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like, what was the event in the
Yeah,
store's mind that still resonates with the prospects or other customers that you're speaking to? And so if you tell the story from that perspective, that hits home a lot stronger than just talking about yourself and like, hey, we set up this, that guide, this, that flow. We got them like checked all the boxes. Like that's not as interesting, but if you help them through a problem or help prepare for something or help them through something that a lot of other stores are going through, then that really cuts through the noise, I find. And the
yeah,
more it's specific on like where they came from, how long it took, what we did, it just
yeah,
builds so much reassurance. And the more of that reassurance you can build up front, the more you can save going on to prospecting calls to explain it all. And
yeah.
so really great to get down to that level of storytelling, those kind of confidence building uh, facts.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And
Mhm.
just finally, then, we wanted to talk a little bit about packaging and pricing. And I mean, I think here again, the piece that caught my eye was really around your focus on outcomes because I'm looking to do actually some of that in my business. So, you've seen a mixture of different pricing models, right? I think in the old world, you had a mix of, like you said, some fixed price stuff and subscriptions.
Mhm.
Um, Companies are looking to become much more outcomes focused. Is
Mhm.
this sort of the first business where that's really been taken to the nth degree? What is some of your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it was always considered a nice to have at every company that I've been in. Like, what is your true definition of launch? Like, what is that?
Mm,
And I think
yeah.
closer you can get to aligning with product's North Star, the better. And I had a product leader in the past explain like Airbnb's number one focus is like bookings. Like, that's their one metric. And so, like, what is your one metric? Do you share it with product? That'll make life a lot easier and align towards it. However, I haven't been anywhere as clear in that as here. So though we would work towards it, though we'd have an idea of, hey, this is what considered launched. It has never been as outcomes driven as here, where we do provide that as a guarantee at times, and it's very clear. It's not like based on your size, we'll do a calculation. It's like this is the metric we're confident we'll get you to.
Right.
And yeah, there's been a lot of evolution in terms of pricing models that I've seen, like we mentioned already, the subscriptions. Although even now, I'd say that's not totally widely adopted everywhere. It's still fairly new, but I have a feeling that that's going to continue to grow in terms of your whole CX org being sort of seen as, hey, are we aligning to different segments of our customer base and are we getting a return on this department versus just services? I think that's going to continue to trend that way based on how people are managing
Mm,
finances.
interesting. That's interesting. I really like that. And so tell us a little bit about kind of how does that come to life like in this, because you have this, it's called a 50/50 program, right? So
Right. Yeah.
can you explain like what that is? You mentioned you have this one metric, you have
Mhm.
this thing that we're really confident of with the client. So this
Mhm.
the 50/50 program,
Mhm.
explain what that is, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started as the 30 and 30 program. And kudos to the leader, Nicole, of the implementation team and team for designing this before I joined. But it was 30 days to get you to 30% automation. So automating 30% of your support interactions so that you can predictably know, okay, I can take down my volume of support to be managed this high at an automated rate versus the ones that are going to agents. And then it quickly evolved to 50 and 50. So 50 will get you to 50% automation within 50 days. And that is also achieving, and that number is going to continue to grow because we are AI powered and AI continues to get smarter and not only deliver answers, but also take actions. So that's, I think, a really important piece that unlocks these higher and higher percentages. It's not just giving you information on like, hey, how can I do this return? It's able to execute with the right inputs these types of actions that previously required escalation or required a handover.
I
So that's been really exciting to see that we can commit to these high automation rates because that is a value prop it's really believable, it's easy to understand, it's easy to plan around, and it's a really consistent story from sales to implementation. And then you're seeing in that launch implementation channel I mentioned on Slack, the follow through. Like here's another proof point, another proof point. Yes, they were able to get that.
Right. Interesting. I'm just trying to think in my world that the probably the one true consistent 80% of our customers are software companies. I think it would be on-time delivery, right?
Mhm.
Would be the like the North Star metric for most customers, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, them like you mentioned right at the start, people in services looking to control performance of services much better, so revenue, margin, ARR, things like that. But
Mhm.
I'm just sort of thinking in the background here, what would that one thing be? And you
Mhm.
know, in when we did the SDA's benchmark survey, it was pretty low, like the average like on-time delivery across all these different sizes of companies
Mhm.
ranged from about 50 to 75%. And I would
Mhm.
say the customers, when I've seen people who've got it locked in, they're usually above 80, 85% because it's just they've got more control, more repeatability. So I think it would probably be that. Um, I'm just thinking about how we would turn it into a contractual outcome that we would get behind. But I'll come back to that one. And then in this world, then, how do you balance like doing things in a really repeatable way through sort of a more prescriptive or packaged service versus like needing to do more custom services or custom things with clients.
Mhm.
Do you have a broad mix, or is it very, very repeatable at the moment?
I think it's fairly repeatable, but the view is really broad. As we mentioned and we touched on the partners,
Mm.
you could go really wide if you were to deliver everything that could be wanted. And so we keep it fairly focused. We have a fairly focused price book of services that we have. But one thing that I like to design against is really working in, hey, like who are your best examples of customers? So they are the most adopted, they're the ones routinely focused on by marketing. They have the highest adoption, they do the most reporting, like they're in the data, they're constantly optimizing. Who are those customers and what services do they ask for from you? Like, is it reporting proactively? Is it integrations help? Like, how do they engage with CX overall? And then taking all of those traits and then putting those into your services packages and then being able to describe why. And so being really, really confident about the best practices, because again, this is back to your team should really be the experts in your product, your best practices, optimizing all the latest feature releases. And that should be a really clear path for you to determine, what is us versus, hey, what's a bit outside of what we should be doing. And I think like customers they do have their path in mind and they might want customizations, but they also in every industry I've been in really want to be told with confidence what it is that you do and what you will do for them and what you can do for them well with the product that you have. Rarely do have I ever heard that they are willing to have you kind of determine what their output should be.
Yep. Yep. No, I like that. I like that. I mean, I think definitely the shift from like open bar to being more prescriptive
Yeah.
is the starting point, I think, now in terms of how you shape a repeatable motion. But as you say, it's the stuff on the corners of that is kind of where the opportunity lies for driving more enhanced value, really, I think, for
Mhm.
clients. But then there's kind of a delicate balance as to like how you execute on that and how you even make that custom stuff, more repeatable. Um, I mean, I think throughout kind of there's a few themes that I've seen come out of this, which I think is are for me a really sort of the like there's a very coherent way that you think about the world, which is it's very much a growth mindset, and I think that's this services led growth
Mhm.
mindset and strategy. I think is kind of reflected in a few things that you're talking about, which is one is being confident. I think in having that commercial mindset of like embedding yourself with the go to market teams, with the sales teams, and then supporting that with the work with product as well, and balancing those two worlds.
Mhm.
Identifying the right kind of skills and capabilities and mindset. So looking for people who are builders, looking for people who've got the spirit of generosity. I think that's
Mhm.
fantastic. Um, Knowing where you shouldn't be is as important as knowing is where you are, right? And then being able to track kind of what is that beyond moment where you're going to maybe leverage technology partners or other third parties to support you there.
Mhm.
And then I think just finally, just being able to sort of pull that all together into like a really holistic way of working with clients that's very consistent and repeatable
Mhm.
can give you the confidence to sort of structure things either contractually or in SLAs
Mhm.
that is a massive differentiator potentially if you're in commercial conversations with new customers, right? You're like, we're
Yeah.
that confident in our delivery that we're going to do X, Y, or Z for you by in this sort of time frame. I think that's wonderful. So have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been really fun.
See, I told you it was easy.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be on.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.